What is up, San Antonio Spurs Nation? Welcome to Bucking Spurs live chat with your boy Rob Trejo from buckingspurs.com. It's good to see you guys. It's good to be with y'all. There's a lot going on in the San Antonio Spurs universe, so I'm glad that we're all here to talk about it. And we're all here to share it, and we're all here to enjoy it and go through the ups and downs together. Spurs Nation, what is up? Make sure that you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Take a moment to tell you to like this video, share this video, drop some comments down below. If you want to support Bucking Spurs, make sure you go ahead and click the link below where you can submit your question to be answered here on this video or on the next video if it doesn't get answered here. And also you can drop a tip to support Bucking Spurs. So getting into all of it, right? Just shout out to everybody who's on the group chat. What's up, guys? Let's get into it. Today's video is about the X Factor. Now, a lot of people have a lot of definitions for X Factors, and you know, does it have to come off the bench? Can it be a starting player or whatnot? So we're gonna get into all that and more. We're gonna talk about what qualifies, in my terms, in this video, what qualifies for an X Factor. We're going to see what people are saying on social media. We're going to kind of look at some stats that I think are important to qualify an X Factor. An X Factor is a player who's going to be considered for the X Factor award should stand out in a few certain areas, and we're going to go over those. Which areas those are to me, you will find out. But first, off the top of this episode, there's something we need to do. We need to congratulate our boy. We need to congratulate Demar DeRozan. Demar DeRozan earns himself a Western Conference Player of the Week. Shout out to Demar. That's a big deal. First one in the West Coast, 11th overall. First with the Spurs, obviously. In the last week, our boy's been balling, and we'll talk about why he's been playing so well in a little while. But overall, this past week, he's been on another level, man. He's been on a different planet. He's been playing like Toronto maybe 2-3 years ago, DeMar DeRozan, where you felt like he was just playing so free. DeMar DeRozan's scoring 29.3 points in this past week, almost 30. He's averaging almost 30 a game. 6.5 rebounds a game. Now, if you know DeMar DeRozan, you know that's not his forte. His forte is not to go get rebounds. He likes to get out on the break rather than crash the boards. But for him to be averaging 6.5 rebounds a game shows that he's gonna put in the effort. He's here to put in the effort on both ends of the floor. He's averaging 6 assists this week as well. We all know DeMar can average 6 assists. I think he averaged 6 assists last year. But he also averaged 4 turnovers, right? And he hasn't been doing that, so he's been playing very well. He's also averaging 1 steal. So his full stat line for you guys, 29 points, 6.5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 34 minutes of play. He has been playing a lot. Pop's been leaving him in the game almost the whole first quarter and almost the whole third quarter, right? And so he gets a little bit of rest the last minute or two in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, he comes in with about 7-8 minutes left to go. So he's been playing a lot of minutes. He's been shooting 62% from the field. God dang, 90% from the free throw line. He's only missed, I think, 4 free throws in this past week. So he's been putting that rim right now is huge. It's huge for DeMar. And he's leading us to wins, and he's leading us to comebacks. Against Toronto, he was the man. That dunk, though, that dunk. And why is DeMar playing better? Why is DeMar all of a sudden just turning it on? Well, it has a lot to do with there being a lot more space on the floor. New spacing equals new opportunities for our boy DeMar. Lamarcus Aldridge shooting threes is a direct correlation of DeMar DeRozan's performance. DeMar DeRozan has stepped it up in this past week, and how many days are we into this new year? Because this all kind of happened around the new year, so about 14 days. So it took him a few games to realize, okay, the lanes are wide open now that Lamarcus is shooting 42% from the three. I mean, it couldn't happen without Lamarcus Aldridge. So this is a great individual award for our boy DeMar DeRozan. It's great that he's getting some recognition. It's great that a Spurs player is getting recognition at all, but especially when so far this season we've been through so many ups and downs. It's cool for us to have a player out there that's being showcased to the league like, hey, this guy's balling out right now, and he is. I mean, people, I know everybody in the NBA probably got a report on that dunk that he had in Toronto and said, hey, if DeMar's coming, get out the way. And he's balling right now. So he's been playing great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat really quick. See what's going on with you guys. What's up, players? So let's get into the X Factor conversation. It's the reason we're all here. Everybody has an opinion on who's the X Factor and what qualifies an X Factor. To me, an X Factor has to be a guy that does a lot with a little bit. It's not a guy that, to me, it's not a guy that's getting all these minutes and not really producing. But also, it has to be the guy that just makes everybody else around him play better when that person is playing well, right? Like, who plays well, and by him playing well, everyone else just feeds off of it, right? So that's kind of my idea. They have to pass the eye test. I mean, an X Factor, you know him when you see him in the game, when he enters the game. It's not just, it doesn't take the X Factor a few shots to get going. He gets into the game and he gets things, and things change. So he changes the game when he gets in there. And we'll look at the stats in a little while. But I do not think that our X Factor, just for this video, can be any of our top paid players, because I think our top paid players are the guys that we're supposed to bank on. So as much as, I want to talk about our two main guys because they've been balling out as of late being our X Factors, I just don't see it. I don't think so, which leads me to my next question: is DeMar DeRozan or Lamarcus Aldridge eligible for this conversation about being our X Factor so far this season? I'm going to say no, okay? Because they're expected to perform. They're expected to dominate on a game-to-game basis. You don't look at another team and say, oh, man, who's the Lakers X Factor? Oh, LeBron. No, it's not. It's going to be someone else. It's going to be Kyle Kuzma, or it's going to be Rondo or Dwight Howard off the bench. Or if you look at the Clippers, you're not going to say Kawhi is the X Factor. Oh, Kawhi is the one piece that can swing the game. No, Kawhi's supposed to dominate, and they're supposed to have an X Factor in Lou Williams, right? Or Harrell, right? So an X Factor to me are one of those guys that come off the bench maybe. I mean, they can be in the starting lineup. That's not against the rules. I mean, because we can talk about players all day about who's the X Factor, who's not. When it comes to if this person's playing better, then we all play better. That qualificator that I mentioned earlier, I mean, Bryn Forbes is in that conversation, right? When Bryn Forbes plays well, we just kind of all play well. He makes everyone's better, but is he the X Factor? Is he my X Factor? We have to wait and find out. So for the sakes of this conversation, I'm going to say Lamarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan do not count. Okay? Now I'm going to go over my top 3 X Factors so far for this season, and I want to start off with 2 honorable mentions. Okay, 2 players who are on my X Factor honorable mention, and I'll tell you why they didn't make my top 3 in a moment. And the 2 players that I'm talking about, the first one is Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles is my honorable mention X Factor because he's in the starting lineup doing what everybody needs him to do. He's getting in the game. He's getting everyone else involved in that starting unit. He shoots when he's open. When he is scoring the ball, you know that we're having a good game. I feel like that's where it is with Trey. If Trey Lyles is hitting shots, if he's getting to the rim, if he's getting offensive rebounds, then we're probably going to win that game. We're probably doing well. Maybe if we don't win it down the stretch, into overtime or whatever. But Trey Lyles kind of has that influence on the game. The game flows while he's in there. And lately, he's been a rebounding machine. I mean, against the Celtics, against Milwaukee, he had 12 rebounds in in 3 quarters, I think but then the next game he comes out and he and he only has like 3 rebounds, right? So Trey Lyles, like almost everybody else on our team, has a little bit of inconsistency issues, consistency issues, and Trey Lyles falls into that category. That's why he's just that's kind of why he's just honorable mention right now, but he's a big factor in what we do. Last honorable mention, it's got to go to our guy Jakob. Jakob changes the game when he walks on the floor. People know he's there. He defends the rim. He blocks shots. He limits the other team to 1 shot per possession. And not only that, when he gets into the game, he's able to be a dynamic player and threat on the offensive end. I mean, he can get the rebound and just take off coast to coast now. I don't know if you've seen him do that, but when he does that, that break is deadly because he has usually Lonnie, Patty Mills, and Derek White on the break with him, or Rudy Gay on the break with him, because that second unit's been playing very well together. So, I don't know. Jakob is a guy that I feel like impacts both ends of the floor now. He can finish, he can catch, he can finish around the rim. He's a good passer, and he gives you all the energy plays. I mean, we saw what he can do against the Houston Rockets in that Lonnie Walker game. But not only that, if we go ahead and look at the stats, which we will a little bit later, he has a great, plus minus. When he's on the floor, we just play a lot better. But the reason why he's on my honorable mention is because he doesn't play that much. Unfortunately, he's coming into the game to sub out Lamarcus Aldridge, and who's probably our best player right now besides DeMar DeRozan. That's Lamarcus Aldridge. He's playing well. He's shooting well. He's still doing his mid-range thing, and he's defending the rim pretty well for a small ball 5. He's doing a good job defensively. But Jakob comes in for him, so his minutes are limited, which is going to put him on my honorable mention list. Now, my top 3. In no particular order, I'll tell you who my X factor is at the end of the episode, but let me give you who my top 3 are in no particular order. Okay, let me stress in no particular order. And let me also stress that it's okay if you don't agree with me. That's all right. You have your own opinions. You think, this or that, whatever, that's fine. It's subjective. I mean, when we're talking about X factor, it's not like we're talking about who leads, the team in points, where you can actually go and pull a stat, an actual statistic, and actually prove actual data that this person is better than this person. No, an X factor is kind of subjective to what's important to you and what you think is helping swing the team and making us better, and is really like the deciding player, and how this guy plays it, or is going to decide how this player plays is going to decide if we win or if we lose. To me, that's the X factor. So it's subjective. So if you have a different list than mine, tip of the hat to you. Leave it on the comments down below, and I love to hear it and I love to see it. Actually, I do want to see it because I want to check the pulse of Spurs Nation. Okay, I had a poll on Twitter, by the way, going on. You can go and check that out. Also on my Instagram page. Okay, let me lower this down just a second. My top 3 for X Factor so far. We're about midway into the season. My top 3 for the X Factor of this 1920 season are, in no particular order, Lonnie Walker, DeJounte Murray, and Patty Mills. And then I'm going to tell you why in a little while. What are they each doing right now that is setting us apart, and why I think they're the X Factor and why maybe not. Okay, so we'll get into all that later. When we come back after this break, we're going to go into Twitter. We're going to go into social media and see what you guys thought about the X Factor question. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. What is up, people? We are back. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the live chat show, Bucking Spurs style. Let's get into what the stats say about this X Factor conversation. Now, I'm going to be getting my stats from Basketball Reference. Now, these are the stats that mean most to me, right, when I think about the X Factor conversation. Now, again, I'm looking at minutes. I'm looking at who's doing more with less amount of time on the floor. I'm going to look at the assist percentage, right? Who is going into the game and just making people better around him, right? We're going to look at the offensive and defensive plus minus. We're going to look at total win shares per 48 minutes. So let's get into it. Basketball Reference, right? Let's go ahead and get to the stats first, and then we'll go ahead and talk about social media in a little while. Let's go ahead and talk about assist percentage. Now, an assist percentage stat in the NBA is an estimate of the percentage of teammate field goals a player assisted while he was on the floor, right? So if I'm looking at my top three guys, DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, and my guy Lonnie Walker, obviously it's a no-brainer who has the higher stat in this category, and that's DeJounte Murray. Right behind him though is Patty Mills. Okay, so DeJounte is a guy that goes in there and makes everyone better, just knows what play. He can see the play before it happens, and he's able to find players in transition a lot better, a lot smoother, a lot faster. He's able, when he gets the ball and he can get the rebound and push the break, just as lethal as anyone else on our team. DeJounte Murray is a monster out in transition, so he's doing well there. Now let's go ahead and look at win percentages per 48 minutes, right? So win shares per 48 minutes is an estimate of the number of wins contributed by a player per 48 minutes, right? Per 48 minutes. And right now, leading our team in this stat is not important. That's what it is, actually, as I look at it. This stat sucks. Okay, let's go to offensive plus minus and defensive plus minus, because I like those. Okay. Let me find it. There we go. All right, so our offensive plus minus score, Patty Mills is a guy that has a 2.4, right? So an offensive plus minus is a box score estimate of the offensive points per 100 possessions, right? A player contributed. Patty Mills is leading that score. That doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, he's a positive as soon as he steps on the floor offensively. He provides the spark. He's shooting well. You know, per game, per 36 minutes, Patty Mills is actually shooting 43% from the field and 40% from the three-point line, right? So he's lighting it up from the field while he's in there. He doesn't turn over the ball. He's still averaging a cool 3 assists, and he's averaging 17 points per 36 minutes. Now, if you want to look at his per game, you know, Patty Mills is averaging 11 points, shooting 43% from the field, 40% from the three. Patty Mills is just a guy who impacts the game offensively as soon as he steps on the floor. Defensively, let's go look at those advanced stats. Defensively, Jakob Poeltl stacks is way above everyone else on this plus minus. I mean, that's why I mentioned earlier, you look at Jakob's plus minus on the defensive end, he's just a monster, way above the average, the league average, way above the average of our team. And we're just way better with him on the floor. Him and Derek White together on the floor is actually pretty dope. Defensively, I don't know if there's a better combination of players on our team defensively that has proven it on the court this season than Jakob and Derek White. When those two are on the floor together, it's tough because Derek White's going to make it very tough for you to get to the lane, and then Jakob's there. Morant is a better player than Murray. Come on, man. All right, so the stats are showing a few different things. Each one of these players qualifies in one way or another why they deserve to be the X factor of the team. Now, if I go to Twitter, let's see what Twitter's saying. Right now, I have a poll open. There's still a little bit of time left on it, but I was asking Spurs Nation, who is your X factor this season? Overwhelmingly, Lonnie Walker is the favorite at number 1. Patty Mills at number 2. Bryn Forbes has got a couple votes, and Derek White has got a mention here below as well on Twitter. So Lonnie Walker, I knew was going to be the fan favorite. Obviously, I think when you're talking about the eye test and just looking at the game and watching the game, it doesn't take a fool, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that the game changes when Lonnie Walker gets in there. Offensively, he's a guy that can go on runs by himself, right? Not only can he get his own shot, he can go on a 10-point run all by himself. And defensively, he's showing progress, right? So Lonnie Walker's the fan favorite, X factor of this season so far. I'm going to go over my X factors when we come back from this short break. Okay, so make sure you guys stay tuned. All right, we're back. So to close off this video, who is my X factor so far for this 2019-2020 season? I gave you my top 3, right? I gave you Patty Mills, I gave you DeJounte Murray, and Lonnie Walker. Now, first one off my list has got to be DeJounte Murray. Now, the only reason why he's off my list is because only up to about maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, he was on a minute restriction. So it's hard for him to call him our X factor when early on in the season, the good first 20 games or so, he wasn't able to be in there at the end of games because of his minute restriction. So for me, that kind of takes him out of the question. But if you were to take the poll from now until the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if DeJounte Murray is the X factor of the team, because I feel like a big part of why we're playing better is not just right now because of Lamarcus Aldridge shooting threes, but it's also because of DeJounte Murray playing at a higher level than we even thought he could play at. Because right now he's been playing at, okay, I'm getting back into the groove. I need to make people better. How am I going to do that? Well, now he's figuring out how to do that. Now he's trying to do it at a high level, right? So DeJounte is making a lot of progress right now. So he's the first one off my board. And kind of for the same reason, Lonnie Walker's the next one off my board. So my X factor for the 1920 season has got to be our boy Patty Mills. Now, Patty Mills is a guy who's consistent. Now, as a coach, I'm thinking that as a coach perspective, right? As a coach, there's a guy on my bench that's never going to complain and always be ready to play. No matter what, I know what he's going to give me on any given night. When I put him on the floor, there's no question about it. The only question is if his shots are going to go in. But you get your energy, you get your hustle, and he's not just a guy that you can rely on. He's a guy that can drop 30 when you need him to drop 30. And we all know Patty Mills. We all know what he's about. He's been with the Spurs forever. He's a guy that can get hot from mid-range, from the three-point line. He can take you to the rim. He's a smart player. He's going to take what the defense gives him and dominate with it. And this season, we've had to rely on Patty. In all types of ways, we'd have to rely on Patty. Locker room wise, making sure that our guys are keeping a level head through that losing streak that we went through, and just making sure that we all have the mindset. Patty's that X factor for us, because without Patty, without that veteran presence going through the season, that the beginning of a season like we just went through, that could have went very wrong, and we could have very well not turned it around like I feel like we are right now. And if Patty isn't there in that locker room, the chances of us tanking this season or just not being able to come back from a terrible start goes way up. Those chances go way up. So Patty is not only a guy in the locker room, a great teammate in the locker room, but he's a guy who can go ahead and lead the squad on any given night when you call out his number. He can hit 30. He can guard, like a madman. He's also a guy who can hit game winners and hits game winners for us every single year. And coming into this season, he's doing it again, right? And he's a guy that just makes everybody better by having his energy level always be where it's at. And for Patty to be going through the Australia brush fire crisis that they're going through right now, and him and all the Aussies are banding together, and that's taking a lot of I'm sure time and mental effort to address and be consistent about. I mean, they're really pushing. Joe Ingles was on the Woj podcast. Patty Mills was on the Woj podcast. No, I think Joe Ingles was on the Zach Lowe podcast. But anyways, they're out there trying to raise awareness for this cause, and that's got to be exhausting mentally and emotionally, right? So for Patty Mills just to come out and be an ultimate pro so far this season, he's led us from the get-go. He's our guy that we all go to bat for. When DeJounte Murray signed his contract in the video, who was there in that office? Who walked in to congratulate him first? And it was Patty Mills, right? So Patty Mills has not just been our X factor on the court; he's been our X factor off the court. I mean, he's our second most efficient three-point shooter right now. He's not playing the most minutes, but when he's in there, he's a huge plus. Let's go back and look at his stats again really quick. Patty Mills. Per game is averaging about 23 minutes. Okay, so he's averaging about 23. The only players averaging more than him on a night-to-night basis are your starting five. Derek White. All right, so Patty Mills is playing a decent amount of minutes even at his age right now. He's attempting about 9 shots per game. Shooting 43% from the field, shooting 5 threes a game, shooting 40% there. He's getting to the line, okay? So he's shooting 79% from the free throw line, and he's averaging 2.1 assists, right? So he's just the guy right now. He's the guy that, as a coach, you just love to have that guy on the bench that you can just rely on. And this year we've needed him, because look at who else we've had on the bench veteran wise, like Rudy Gay. I'm sure has been a huge help, to the development of our players, and Lonnie, and also keeping that veteran mindset, but he hasn't really been able to produce on the floor like Patty has, right? And just until recently, our main 2 guys hadn't been carrying us, and really the only guy I talked about it in a podcast about 2-3 episodes ago, that I don't know if I should be worried that Patty Mills is kind of being our guy at the moment. And there was like a good stretch there in November, early November, when Patty Mills was the only one that was kind of stepping up for us on a night-to-night basis. So our X factor for me, for bucking Spurs so far this season, is our Aussie, Patty Mills. Good on you, Patty. Just doing more than we could ever imagine on and off the floor for our San Antonio Spurs. So go ahead, make sure you guys go ahead and click the link below to share this episode, like this episode, subscribe to this podcast, hit that little bell so you get notified whenever we're going to drop new content. Working on this live stream, like I said last time, it's a work in progress. I'm going to be getting better at this. This production is going to be getting better. If you want to help and support this show, the link down below has a link to where you can tip, or you can submit your question for a super chat, and all that tipping and all that stuff goes back into the show to provide better equipment, better sound, better all this stuff or whatever, to do more for you guys. All right, so, and it helps support me do this for you guys as well. So thank you guys for tuning in, for getting in that live chat. If you want to submit your question for the next live chat, make sure you go ahead and click the link below, and then it'll send you to the link where you can go ahead and submit that. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Podcast, wherever you get your podcast jam on. Follow us on YouTube, right here, Instagram, IG, and Twitter. All right, that's where I'm active most. All right, so go ahead and get at me if you like this episode. If you didn't, if you see some things we could do better, I'm always open ears. I always have open ears and ready to accept that. So go ahead. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for supporting us. Some of you guys in the chat have been here for a long time, supported my videos from earlier this year and last year, and so it's growing slowly. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys that are tuning in. All right, so go Spurs, go, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Adios.